Hey everybody, this is Perch. Retcons are typically hated, generally by comic fans. They don't like stories that get switched up through shenanigans, and you didn't realize that it wasn't actually the way you thought it was, and it's now some way different. Whatever it might be, retcons typically are frowned upon in comics, yet they happen all the time. So why do they happen all the time? Well, mainly because comic books often operate on a "we are trying to shock you" kind of model, where the goal is to juice sales by saying the thing you thought you knew that had happened actually never actually happened. It happened a different way that you didn't know, and it's a new way. So you buy the comic. New way is here. That's typically how a lot of these retcons go, and they work. Despite the fact that comic collectors, comic fans, comic readers, comic customers repeatedly express hatred for the dreaded retcon, the dreaded changing of continuity. You thought you knew what was going on, but you don't actually know what's going on, and this is what's going on. People don't tend to like it. They say they don't like it, but they buy it. The sales numbers for big kind of retcon events go up. I showed some sales numbers from a while back for some very controversial storylines, things that people absolutely hate, and all of them, including the fall of Arsenal and Sins Past, or was it Sins Past? The Norman Osborn was screwing Gwen Stacy. That was Sins Past. I think that was Sins Past. I don't know. A lot of Sin storylines. Anyway, um, despite the fact that those are reviled comics and storylines, people repeatedly, they bought it at the time. Not repeatedly, the numbers were high. Many comics out today would love those kinds of numbers. So are retcons always bad? Well, I mean, from a sales perspective, no. Like I said, the reason they keep happening is they keep selling, and customers keep putting their money down and happily buying them, and that's why they keep occurring. The they can also help. So we're getting into a little bit of spoiler territory for Amazing Spider-Man and Nick Spencer's arc, and I won't spoil it, but basically, part of what he has done in his run, which now seems clear. Spencer claimed that he went back and read all the Spider-Man comics, and I think, based on what he's done, seemed to pay very close attention to some of the more controversial, hated storylines, and seemed to make an attempt to put those storylines in a better light. And so he's been, this is not a spoiler, but he's been kind of chipping away at One More Day for quite a while, and that's been kind of part of his approach, and it feels like that's how he's going to end his comic, is to reconcile that, at least to some extent. But in addition to that, he recently retconned a retcon. So this was a storyline, again, I'll do this without revealing spoilers, but this was a storyline that was thoroughly hated in the Spider-Man mythology, probably the most hated storyline, and that including One More Day, which is pretty hated too. And he basically went in and said it wasn't like he thought, and changed it around a bunch, which majorly shifted that story probably in a better light. And so, that's what I would call a healing retcon, an idea of changing up continuity in order to make it better. And in many cases, though, you don't see it. And the reason why you don't see ones that kind of repair or heal is because it takes a long time to do it. Nick Spencer has had, he's on issue 74, 75. He's had over 70 issues. And then if you count in all the crossovers and the tie-ins and the dot, SRs and all the rest, he's probably very close to a 100 issue run. It'll make a nice omnibus at some point. And in order to tell the story and do the retcon of properly, in order to just sell it, you have to give it lots of time to breathe. You have to explain it. You have to lay all the steps out. It isn't something you can do in an issue. And that kind of goes against the nature of a retcon itself, where the goal is to spike sales for one issue or 4 issues, basically to shock the system, and then bring in a bunch of new customers. And so what he's done is kind of the anti-retcon. I don't know. I'm sick of saying the word. I've said retcon way too many times in the last 5 minutes. But basically, if you're given the time, and if you can properly kind of lay out all the different aspects of the story, then I think it does become very possible to repair this stuff, to basically, use the benefit of time. Because when they were making some of these storylines, and they're making this truly hated Spider-Man storyline, I guarantee you the writers at the time did not think, aha, we're making something that people are going to hate for decades. They thought they're making something that provides an interesting, curious twist you didn't see coming on the Spider-Man mythology, and that everybody will love this stuff, because who doesn't like new and interesting twists? But with the benefit of time, we can now look at it and say, well, that was a terrible idea, and everybody was stupid for trying it, and it aged very, very badly, and it didn't get the result it wanted. It didn't get people more interested in anything Spider-Man. It got them less. I think these are all things that you wouldn't necessarily have known up front. Now, I think a lot of people, if you know the storyline I'm talking about, I think most people could have said, yeah, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. But I don't think many people in the moment would have predicted how thoroughly hated it would be. So many years go by, you have more space between it, and it allows you the chance to basically address most or all of the reader complaints. Basically, get in there and specifically explain why you did some of the things you did, and dance around it in other places. You have the benefit of being able to pretend that this was the way the story always was, and that's the positive of the retconning of continuity, is that you can basically use it as a cheat, a way to say, hey, we saw how more time played out. We realized some of these decisions were dumb based on kind of your reaction and how other things have gone, other trends. And so, this was always what we intended. We always intended this other kind of plan. And now you're just seeing it play out. And it was all a big act the entire time. It was sleight of hand. You missed it the entire time. That's kind of what's going on here. It is curious. Again, I like I said at the beginning, retcons are things that people dislike. They say they dislike it. They hate them. They protest when the company says they're going to do this. Generally, companies, they don't describe it that way. It's a shocking secret you never knew. Now that will change the way you look at things forever, tends to be how they describe it. And everybody's gotten to the point where that induces automatic vomit. Just they hear it and they're like, no, I don't want this. Yet, we're still in a world where people connect that statement with collectability. And that's really what it all comes down to, is even though people go in cringing, not ready for it, don't want to see how it's going to play out, there's this belief that is not really based in reality anymore, that this is going to be worth money. And you wouldn't want to miss out on something that'd be worth money, right? So you got to buy it. And that it's a weird system that feeds itself. People don't like it, but they think it's going to be valuable. So they buy it. And thus they send the message to the publisher, give us more of this because it's a high seller. So the publisher does give more of it. But the more they give, the more they do these retcons, the more they change them, the more they do the shocking events you won't see coming, the less the value tends to be. Because, the shocking events, not so shocking, companies, publishers are always go to the well way too often. And so it feeds itself. So it becomes less valuable, but people still buy it. So people keep churning it out. And it's just this interesting downward spiral where nobody is particularly happy, but everybody is participating in making sure it keeps going. I don't know. I mean, I've got on a positive note. You got to hand it to Nick Spencer. I think he did manage to figure out ways to leave the property better than when he came in. And this is that's debatable, of course. It's a matter of opinion of what you like about Spider-Man or don't like. But I think that there once was a goal. And I know I saw it published in DC. I'm pretty sure Marvel said the same thing. I know this was one of Jim Shooter's tenets, which was when you're coming onto a book as a writer, leave it a little bit cleaner than when you found it. Leave it a little bit better. Leave it strengthen the character. Think of yourself as a shepherd. Everybody's carrying things from one spot to another spot. It's like a big rally race, and somebody else is going to take it, and they're going to march forward with it. And do good by the people coming in, and do good by the customers. Try and make it just better. Try and improve the situation so the person who comes in after you is not cleaning up a big dumpster fire. And I do think Nick Spencer did that. I think he took over for Dan Slott. It was a long run out of Dan Slott, but especially toward the end, the wheels came off that bus, I think, in a pretty major way. The whole brief turn where Peter Parker was a billionaire and then he wasn't, through complete nonsense. I mean, it's funny, the the loss of his fortune and fall from grace that Parker had in the Dan Slott run makes no sense if you think about actual tech billionaires and other people. I mean, Bill Gates has been caught up in worse, and fine. The idea that it's crazy. I know he destroyed his own IP and everything to save the world, but that doesn't. It's not how it works. You wouldn't be a billionaire overnight and then nothing. So anyway, I think that Spencer did a good job of trying to clean some of that stuff up, bring back some core Spider-Man things. He did good by the villains. He made the villains in many cases very threatening, which was wonderful. Anyway, let me know what you think about retcons in general. Can they be good? What are some examples of some good ones that actually strengthen things? Do you think Spencer did a good job? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.